while ago, like 25 minutes ago. This is all like I take in like how you act before the show,
All right.
and I use that in the show.
Okay.
So we talked about stuff at the coffee shop. We talked earlier about that stuff. We talked about like some of the things like that have changed for you prior. Wait, let me scratch that. Okay, I haven't even introduced you. I should probably introduce you.
Yeah, I think so.
So your name is Jared.
Last name?
Is that right?
Yeah, Jared Keller.
Keller, there we go. Jared's here to talk to us today about some of the changes that have happened in his life for the better, for the most part, and some other topics that we discussed a little bit here. And so some of them, like we talked about before, might be.
Well, first I want to thank you for this opportunity. This is something, obviously, some years ago that would be way outside my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anything that would involve any kind of vulnerability would be outside of that. So I appreciate this opportunity to come and do this. You know, I don't think a lot of people, besides like in our group or community, people that have gone through some stuff, get that opportunity. You know, and this is a pretty cool thing. I think it should be done more. I think I could have used this years ago. I'm glad it happened when it did. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and I'm glad to have you. Looking forward to our conversation on topics like that were important to you in your sort of revitalization of somewhat of your life, maybe if that's a word to use. But some of them that we kind of talked about a little bit were gratitude. We'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about a morning routine, possibly. A lot of people use a morning routine. I like to check with people what theirs is. And some other topics, but why don't we start with that? Why don't we start with a little bit of, tell me a little bit about your morning routine if you have one.
Yeah, so every day, especially Monday through Friday, Saturday's a little bit more relaxed. I do things with my wife and stuff, and it's kind of like decompress on the weekend. But Monday through Friday is very solid routine, and I've developed it over some time now. I didn't always used to have one.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of woke up and did life as it came, and it was very problematic in my life. So I'm the type of person that thrives and works very well around structure, repetition, routine. It took me a lot of years to figure that out, but I thrive on that. It may not be for everybody, but every morning I'm very consistent. So when I'm not consistent, and you know, it's me and my wife and we have 4 dogs, when I'm not consistent, she gets thrown off. If I do something a little different than I usually do, she's like, oh, you know, my God, what's going on? Must be like, what happened? Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's how people get. I think the consistency, so like my morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm up around 4:45-ish. I live really close to my gym, so I get up. I usually try to get to the gym around 5 a.m. I walk there because it would take longer to drive, honestly. And I walk over there, I do my workout, I'm out of there 5:55, no later than 5:58. Walk home. I'm usually home by like 6 o'clock. 6 a.m. my wife's usually getting up or awake or still laying down. And then that's kind of like my time. So from that time I get up and then go to the gym, you know, and I do that. That's my time. It's almost like a meditation in a sense. And I get up, and the first thing I do is I go right into the kitchen, filling up my water jugs and stuff for the day. If there's any like leftover dishes in the sink, which drives me nuts, I'll put those and clean up a little bit. And I do that every single morning, and I never miss that. And I drink, you know, 10 to 16 ounces of water, fill up my thing. Then I'm off to, you know, do my recovery stuff, you know, and I do that from 6:30 to 7:30. Another group setting, go there. Pretty much, I do that every day, Monday through Friday, and I never miss it unless like we're on vacation. And then there, at least 3 days a week, I'll get a chance to share for a few minutes and be vulnerable and kind of get outside my whole comfort zone.
That's good.
And then I then I leave there at 7:30. Usually get home like 7:40, And then I make my wife coffee, I make myself coffee every single time. Same way, same thing, same deal. We have a little machine. I then, feed the dogs. I always feed the dogs. And then I get ready for work. If it's a gym day, like Monday through Wednesday, sometimes I do on Thursday, I always eat after, like a lot of protein. I always eat on those days. And I'll make myself my lunch, get ready, and then get ready for work. And I already have a pretty good plan of action for my work day. I have my own business, I'm a contractor in construction, so I'm getting guys set up and I'm getting ready to take off for the jobs. And I load up my truck and I'm on the road by like 8:30.
That's a lot. And then by 8:30, when most people are just opening their eyes, you've already gotten that all.
Yeah.
You got your life sort of sorted, cleaned,
Uh-huh.
worked out, and that I hear and I feel for myself has always been a way better way to start the day than just start out opening your eyes as you're driving into work, because you can get yourself settled, centered, you can get balance for your day, you can get peaceful, calm.
Right.
All of that stuff comes from that morning routine. So even though it's it's called structure, sure, but what it does is it helps you have less structure later and need less structure later because you're more efficient and effective in getting stuff done. I find that myself.
Yeah, it's extremely important. And then Thursday, Friday, same thing. It's that a lot of times without the gym. I never just, and I shared this with someone the other day. We were talking about a gentleman trying to get sober and going through struggles. Like I never just wake up anymore and going, what am I going to do today? Or maybe I'll go do this, or maybe I'll do that. I just don't do that anymore. Well, the weekends are a little more lax. Like I knew I was coming here. My wife has plans with a friend. We'll have a fun weekend. If we decide to do something spontaneous later, like we want to go to Temecula, we want to do this or do that. I know she's in school right now, so Sundays she's studying. I'll watch football. I got a couple other little mini things I do over the weekend. But yeah, it's pretty set up, and it works for me.
Yeah, I think it works for a lot of people who are successful. I think for the most part, most successful people have a structure of a morning routine where they let their mind and their intentions and their peacefulness get set up ahead of time for the stuff that's going to come.
Right.
Because you're not going to have it if you don't later.
Yeah, and it's super quiet in the morning before I get to the next destination, because then my day goes into fight or flight chaos throughout the day. There's always something went wrong, something happened, this guy didn't show up, this guy's pissed, this guy's angry, client's not happy, when's this gonna get done, phone calls, texts, and it's just like, and it's chaos throughout the day, and I'm go. But with this routine, I mean, like the way I eat, work out, I have a lot of energy today, and I'm 38, and I feel like I got more energy and motivation than I did in my 20s.
Yeah.
But also my motivations were a lot different then too. It was very toxic. I was in toxic relationships. I was I didn't live life healthy. And I needed outside substances and external things to make me feel better.
Right.
And like today, my life is about growing and change and wanting to be a better man. I was a wreck for a lot of years.
Those goals weren't involved back then. Being a better man and all that.
Yeah, like I used to blame everybody else, and I used to use people to make myself feel better. Like I would use a substance, a drug, and alcohol. I just never felt right. Mm-hmm. And no matter how I felt, whether happy, sad, depressed, anxious, I always wanted to feel better. I never felt content.
Right.
And I was never free from any of that. I was just like a caged animal. And my behavior was just so spontaneous, and I got myself in a lot of trouble, and I just reacted to life. I never processed anything. I never talked about anything. Trying to get me to do this 5 years ago or something, no way, no chance. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't grow up with a father who did it. Mm-hmm. My father, he just celebrated 17 years clean. He quit drinking. He didn't really find a program. He has his own little thing, but I just remember everything in my life was chaos. And the people I around were negative too, and negative things were happening to me, and I was in complete victim mode, and I held a lot of people hostage, and I was just this scared boy for so many years. I was afraid. I was terrified of life.
I know just what you're talking about. I felt it myself. All those things, scared, toxic stuff. But let's switch track right now, and let's talk about some of the things that I think might be some of the principles that have helped make changes in both of us, probably to some extent. Let's see. We could start out with maybe the idea of humility. Like, how's that come into your life compared to back then, or when you were struggling compared to now? Like, how's humility played in your life? Played out.
I mean, it's obviously something I'm still working on. I didn't know what it was like to be humble. I think, and I still struggle today with a lot of ego and a lot of pride, and trying to let that go. But I'd been through a lot of traumatic experiences, and 99% of them were self-inflicted by my actions and things I was doing and the situations I was putting myself in. I just intentionally try to live a little different today. There were certain things that had happened to me, or things that would go on, that it would kind of humble me for a little bit. And the problem though was a lot of it was motivated by fear. Like, I'd go through some severe consequences. The wife's gonna leave, this is gonna happen if you don't straighten up, and it would humble me for a little bit, and then I'd get on the right track, and then that ego would come back and kind of wipe away all that humility and that spirituality, and I'm running the show now, and I'm the one putting in the action, I'm the one, I started getting really full of myself. Until I realized that there was so much I couldn't control. And that's a whole nother conversation, was realizing that I'm not running this show. I'm responsible for the actions I take day in and day out, and that's where that routine helps. But there's been a lot of experiences that have humbled me, but I struggle with it during the day. I run a business, so I can get very controlling. Then I look at my own life sometimes, and my relationship with my wife, and the way I react to things still sometimes, and I'm like, oh man, you really need to, you have a lot to work on. That's what I tell myself. You have a long way to go. But the good thing is, like, I'm in therapy now and stuff, and I was with my therapist yesterday, and it was like, I'm on the right track. And I remember being at a better place a few years ago, and I remember what that feels like. So I always kind of look at that as like, okay, you've been there before, you've humbled yourself, and it's gotten you really far. And sometimes it takes a lot to humble me, and sometimes there's consequences. But every day I'm reminded like on a daily basis, just from the people I go around with, the stories I hear, the people that are struggling, it kind of humbles me, like, you have a lot to be grateful for. And I remember how bad it really was. But on that day-to-day 405 drive, and I'm just trying to take back control, I forget that until I start participating with other people that are struggling, and kind of like share that message and talk to them. I'm like, wow, dude, that was me. I was that guy, roaming the streets, intoxicated, having no purpose, and I couldn't stop. And it was tearing me apart.
I felt that same way about a few of those things. I relate to one, running a business. I always thought like I was this greatest guy to get along with, because I never argued with anybody, but I would just cut them off if they did anything wrong.
Yeah.
And then I got along with them because the only people around me are the ones I let not get cut off.
Yeah.
So I was kind of just all in ego, thinking I was all humble. And then that flipped, and now I wouldn't call myself humble, because it's just not my nature, but I can know what it is, and I can see what I'm doing, and I can try to adjust towards it. And that's sometimes the best I can do. It'd be nice to be perfectly humble, but I used to tell people I'm the most humble guy you know.
It's just like
not how it works, turns out. But That's good when you talked about that.
Well, there was a definition, and it's kind of simple. And I kind of, when I first heard it, I was like, okay. Someone was saying was like humility was not thinking less of yourself; it was thinking of yourself less. So thinking of others, and it's kind of a very basic term, and I've heard guys use it just throughout like recovery and stuff, and I like it. It's kind of simple. There's kind of, I think it's deeper than that, obviously, but yeah, I mean, the reality of it is I was, and still to this day, sober, is I'm constantly consumed with self. Everything in here is significantly bigger than what it really is, but I won't ask for help. I won't reach out until I get in enough pain. And then I realize I talk to somebody and I say it out loud what my problem is or what it, and it's like, oh, well, there is a solution for it. And what I made it to be in my head was 100 times bigger. And that goes back to that whole fight or flight. I get that phone call and my immediate reaction is like, oh, no, like doomsday, the whole world is collapsing. Oh my God, I freak out. I don't take a minute to pause.
So I still do that with some of mine too. The freak out, the feeling that the whole world's ending over a phone call before you picked it up.
Yeah.
That's what I get with a certain phone number. And so, I don't know, I just try to work on it and be aware of it and try to get better at it myself.
Yeah.
But let's go back and you touched on it briefly, but you mentioned helping others. And that's a good topic.
Yeah.
So how has that changed for you? Like, would you want to have helped people when you were this other struggling person that you talk about, or would you not want to help people, and how so, and how is it now?
I think I liked the feeling, and I always thought I enjoyed the feeling of like helping somebody, and if a situation came up, I'd be the first one to run into that building and all that, and maybe there was like a glory ego thing kind of to that. Today it's like I went and met with a guy on Monday who's a young man, and he's struggling. He reminds me a lot of me. He was like at the beginning stages. Things were like, they're getting kind of bad. And then for me, it got really, really progressively worse, and then just fell off the deep end. And he's kind of at that first stage. But, you know, I was getting off work, and I'm like, oh, I got to go meet with him at Starbucks. It's taking about an hour. And at that moment, I was like, I do not want to do this. How do I reschedule this? I wanted to go home. I wanted to watch, selfishly wanted to hang out, relax. My day was hard, and somebody called me names earlier and this and that, and like I deserve it. I want to go home, forget him. And then I went regardless. Just like in the morning when I get up, it's like I don't really want to do this, but I'm gonna go do it. But I went, and after it I felt better, you know, listening to somebody else and talking to somebody else, and maybe he's helping me more than I'm helping him.
Yep.
But people tried to help me a lot, and I think it's like my duty. I mean, because I lived such a selfish, self-centered life for so many years, just selfish to the core. It was all about me, and every action I took was, which I didn't think was hurting anybody, and it was in fact, it was impacting everybody I loved around me, and that's why I have such a long list of amends that I'll be making for the rest of my life to these people, because I caused years of damage. But, you know, being able to help somebody else and get outside myself is a big deal, even when I don't want to.
Right. And whether it's selfish-based or not, the feeling of it is pure, and you can feel when you're actually done something that's helpful to someone.
Yeah.
Whether you did it for the reason that you had to make yourself feel better, or you think it's on your list of I'm a good guy if I do this, doesn't matter, I don't think, when the result is that someone was helped. And if you were there to try and give them some little hand, some little humble offering, because we're not saints or anything, but if we can offer a little something to somebody and see that little twinkle that maybe they're getting something out of this, I think no matter what the basis and reason for doing it is, I think at that point doing some good work for somebody, no matter how you slice it, as motivationally speaking.
I heard a guy speak the other day, and I've heard him say, like, you know, I had the best intentions, right? You know, but the whole world was judging my actions. And I thought that too, because I was like, and deep down, I was like, people thought I was a pretty nice guy. You know, I was trying to do the right thing, and I had all these great intentions. But for a lot of years of my life, from like 23 to 30, when I really hit a bottom, emotionally and physically, mentally, and all that, it was completely self-absorbed and self-centered, and I really thought I had these really great intentions, which I did, but it didn't matter because my actions showed otherwise.
Right.
I hurt a lot of people, along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So then I get sober, and they're like, "We need to help other people." It's like, well, what about my problems? What about how I'm going through? It's always about like me, right? So I it's just an important practice, like you said. It's the intention behind it, and just doing the action. That's really all it comes down to now. At the end of the day, I just try to put in the action.
Yeah, exactly. Once we put in the action, then we've done our best, right?
Yeah.
Whether you do it crooked or you do it straight or you do it perfect or not perfect, you came with the right intention for your action, and that's you're putting something forward there.
Yeah.
So, and you help us improve. So I think that's great. That's good stuff. How about, you said that's a whole nother topic earlier because it's a big one, but what about spirituality for you now compared to what it was like? Maybe.
So it sounds, if you would have asked me I didn't even know, and I'm still like, I looked it up the other day because I was like, what does it even mean? Like, what do other people think it means? Like, what does that mean? I grew up like Catholic, sort of. Like, we went to church, and every funeral and wedding seemed to be like that. And then at some point, our parents kind of pulled away. So I always thought that was kind of tied to it. I didn't realize there was like this whole other side to it. It had nothing to really do necessarily with religion. But then I heard like it's like a podcast, and I think it was that Real Ones one with I said Shia LaBeouf, or however you say his name. Yeah, and he was touching on it too, and he got really deep. But he talked about, which really hit home for me, was just the ability to be present. And that, to me, I thought about it. I was like, right now where I'm at in my life, that's spiritual for me. Being able to be present, because I'd never had that. My whole life was focused on the past, or the fear of everything tomorrow. It was always this fear-based, fear of losing what I had, or fear of not getting what I wanted, or what I thought I deserved in my life. I just ran on a constant state of fear. So I was never present. I mean, I could be in a room full of people, my wife, my family, all the people that love me, and just feel super alone and just disconnected. And I struggle with that today. And I had to have a conversation with my wife about that. I talked to my therapist about that. How do I connect and get off my phone and be home, but be present with my wife and engage with her in a way. And that, to me, when I can do that, and I can put down the chaos of the phone and all the problems, and if we're sitting there painting or just talking and I'm present, that to me is spiritual.
That's everything.
Going in that morning on that little walk alone can be, anytime I can slow down the chatter in my head. But there's been moments in my life where I've like hung with like my nieces, or like with kids, or and like I'm just in that moment. Like my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, she was fostering for a while. So during Christmas, they'd come from Arizona, and they would bring, and they had like two little girls. Like they brought one, it's called Lily, and I remember, like, I was sober, I was struggling, but I was sober, and I remember like playing with her and just interacting with her while she's coloring or eating her breakfast, and that to me was like a spiritual thing, because I wasn't consumed with all this other stuff. I was, at that moment, I was present, and those moments right there are, to me, is like, a step in the right direction towards like what I think is like spiritual, And there's other moments and things that have happened in my life where it's been like a spiritual.
Being present is huge. That's a great one to mention.
Because I don't know how you could be spiritual or connected or even mindful if you're thinking about that meeting or what happened yesterday or whatever bullshit's going to come tomorrow. So I think a lot of it has to do with being present, and like that's something I'm really trying to work towards, man. I mean, it can literally save a relationship. It can do a lot for a person.
It's huge.
Me. Yeah, because I haven't been there for a long time. My wife reminds me of that sometimes too.
What you mentioned about with the niece and the foster children, that stuff's great. For me, when I'm around a child, I'm like in my zone around a kid. I just start playing just as crazy as them, and
Yeah.
all that stuff is like the easiest for me because I love helping kids do stuff and whatever. Just it's natural, and so it brings it out of me. But it's also like, how do I get it when the kid's not around, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why it takes so much work for me to try and have some presence and at least start my day with it. Like I was thinking about your walk after you mentioned it, but before you just mentioned it again, that walk to the gym I think is probably a meditation for you. Like I think it is, because I know what it's like to be rushing towards the gym in my car, because I am, and it's around the same time as you, and I'm definitely not that spiritual on that drive. But if I was walking, I think it kind of leads to that, a little bit more peaceful.
Yeah, I just, we live in a world of fast pace, move, go, 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 rush, and I'm always, that's all I'm focused in. I'm just go, go, go. I'm really good at like getting things done because I can hyper focus on certain things. And then I forget about a lot of the important things too, though.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. Let's talk about how the word love has changed for you, if it has. Or, yeah, I know it's kind of vague, but
I was good at saying it to people. I felt like I had a lot of love in my heart. I cared. I wanted to be, like I said, the intentions were good. The actions I was doing maybe not so good for a lot of years, but you know, I had a lot of love in my heart. I was, you know, even my dad used to kind of tease me as a kid of being like a real sensitive boy, and my mom always said I was this really sweet boy. And I told people in my life, these women, that I remember the client I told her I love it, and I didn't even know what that meant. I remember being like at like 28, I was like, it was just a really, really dark time in my life, and I mean, dark, depressive. The way I was drinking was like just suicidal. If you watched it, you'd be like, this guy's trying to take his life. I was at a point where I didn't want to die, and I just didn't really care what would happen the next day so much. Like that's where I was at, you know, and it was a really bad place, and I've been there many times. I remember just like suffering in silence, but even in those times I was telling people I love them, but I wasn't even loving myself. It's like someone told me, like, I remember I was just like, when I hit that bottom in 2015, and there was this guy who was like, he was really hard on me, and he would say things like, how can you say you love your mom, or how can you say you love this person or that person when you don't even love yourself, you know? And I was like a few weeks sober and stuff, and I was building a resentment for this guy. I'm like, who the hell are you to tell me who I love and don't love? I love my family, I love this. And he'd be like, let's recap some of that stuff that you've done. And like, I've hurt a lot of people. I'm like, well, no, I wasn't intending, you know, and this and that. I always had an excuse or an answer for everything. And he got me thinking. It's like, yeah, I may love him, but like, look at my actions. It didn't show love. You know, I don't think I really truly love myself. And I had to like look at that. Like, what does that mean? Or what does that mean to me? Like, I didn't love myself. If you really looked at it, I was in a place where I just didn't care. So it was hard for me to like truly love another person.
sure.
So I think it's tough now. Like I you know, when I met my wife and I was sober when I met her, I was like 2 years sober. This was back in 2018, and started dating, and like I fell in love with her really, really quick. I remember like I went to Arizona with my parents. They had an RV, and we'd been together like not even a month, right? And I remember this so clear. I don't remember a lot of stuff. You know, I forget so much stuff, but I remember like sitting in that RV. I was having this like one-on-one talk with my mom, and she was like really proud of where I was in my life, and I was in a really, really good place. Emotionally, spiritually, I was in a good place. And I told her, I was like, I'm just letting you know right now that one day I'm gonna marry this woman. And I remember telling her that, and she believed me. I remember at that point, I was able to love another person. When I met her, I was able to love another person, like truly love her. I was still doing a lot of work on myself. But at that point, I was like, okay, now I know what this guy's talking about, because it felt different. So when I met that man, and I was a couple weeks sober, I just got off a plane, 2015, Southern California. I was only gonna stay here for 6 months, and now it's like, what, 8 years later? I didn't really know what real love is. I know a lot of people love me, and people had to stay away from me. I remember like my mom, my dad, like, "Oh, you're not coming over." No, I'm not answering. I'll take your phone call when you're ready to get sober. And people push me away, or I push them away. And I thought, oh, those people don't love me. They're gonna let me suffer. And come to find out, they were doing that to try to help me. And that to me was love.
Right. They were doing love.
They were doing love. From my perspective, they didn't care about me. They didn't me. Yeah, they were cold. So, but people truly wanted the best for me. People wanted me to live. People wanted me to get better. In order to do that, they had to distance themselves from me. So that first year of getting sober, I didn't communicate much with my sister. I let people be. And that was for me. It was for my growth. And then when I finally got to see him again, I could start rebuilding that and start, but I had so much resentment. I love you, but like, I got all this hate and resentment towards you, come to find out. And I just figured out from all this past stuff that I never talked about.
Right. And then we find that I found, you probably have too, that all that hate and resentment is really actually all internally created, and it's not something they did. Like, they don't have to apologize because we have a resentment. We didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just have a resentment because we have one.
So I think the key for that is that you have to, or I have to learn to love myself first before I can truly give another person love, or love another person the way that they deserve to be.
I think that's excellent. And that's well said.
So that takes work on yourself.
Yeah, first.
Yeah.
And alone, most likely, is the best.
Yeah, you have to.
Like, if you're with someone and trying to work on, but if you're alone and you're really working on loving yourself, setting it up in your mind, like everything, getting it right, I think then you're stronger, like you said, when you get to be in a relationship.
Correct.
So. And I think love ties into everything else that you mentioned about helping others. I think that's love. Like, even if a guy you don't want to meet at Starbucks, I think you showing up in there and walking in, I think that's love right there. And I think a lot of that is love that we maybe even think is, it's helpful.
Yeah.
But I think it's more than that,
Yeah, of course.
I think that's what it's all about, just being loving and kind to everybody else. If we could just live by that, right?
Yeah.
That'd be easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy, but it would be a good life, is what I mean to say.
The unfortunate part is that, and I say I, like me, I was one of those men. I was like that statistic, like how a lot of men don't want to go to therapy. A lot of men don't want to get help. It's weak. It's this, and I believed that for a lot of years through a father that never expressed a lot of emotion or love. And come to find out, those are all the strengths, and for me, those are my strengths. And being vulnerable. I suffered in silence for a lot of years when I had so many people.
Stay on that vulnerable path.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this. This is good.
So many people willing to help me. And I sat there and I suffered in silence. I would not talk about anything.
Why did you think you do that?
I don't know if it was like how I was brought up or what I thought I seen around me, and it was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. It's nothing tough or sexy about a man that can't share. Like, dude, I mean, I'd get drunk and it would come out of me, man. The tears would flow. I was in a lot of pain for so many years. And I had so many resources, and I refused to do it with help. I just wanted to do it on my own. And it didn't work, and I fell on my face every single time.
Right. And then you became more vulnerable? What happened?
I got broken down. I mean, it's not that I ran to get vulnerable. It's I got broken down, and I finally just asked for help. But I was like backed into a corner of like, there's these consequences, you're gonna die, and I got to a point of like, okay, I'll do these things you're asking me to do. I fought them a little bit too, and I would sit in groups and sessions, and people would be talking, and I didn't say anything. I wasn't honest. Like, yeah, I'm doing good, everything's fine. That's my go-to response. But really, like, I didn't know how to express, how I was feeling. I didn't know how to do that.
And I agree, that's the braver thing to do. I think it's the braver thing to do by far, is to be vulnerable. It's not easy always, and it's like culturally kind of beat into our heads to be tough and quiet,
Yeah.
like some kind of cowboy. But I think the stronger people are the ones who can be vulnerable.
But I'm still like, it's something I'll be working on for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it because I need to. When my wife met me, we talked about the other night. When she met me, I was very open and vulnerable, and we had a significantly better emotional connection. Right now, that connection's been kind of torn by a lot of my actions and what's happened over the last few years with the relapses and stuff that's taken place, and it disconnected me, and I'm trying to get back to that place. And that requires intentionally coming home and not just I'm fine and then we watch a movie.
Right.
Not just I'm good and yeah, I'm a little stressed out, but I need to get deeper. So I'm still working on that. I'm not where I was back in like 2018, 2017. I'm trying to get better. So
I see you pretty vulnerable now. I mean, from what I see, I think you're pretty open and vulnerable. So you've done work to get where you are. Granted, you know you've been doing better at it before, so you know there's a higher level. But I think you're doing work on it because I see some vulnerability in you.
Well, there's a sense of freedom that I never had because I remember for years and years I just like suffered, and my response to that was needing an external outside substance to combat that. It's tough.
Yeah. And when you are vulnerable, you know, and it's going well, how do you feel when you're being vulnerable? You feel nervous, or
nervous.
Still nervous,
anxious,
but also good.
Yeah, of course. At the end of it, I always feel better. I used to do these panels and I'd go share with like a bunch of people. It's like stripped down, naked kind of share. Man, I remember I brought my wife a couple times when we were still like dating. Man, you know, I just spilled the beans. I just shared all the darkest stuff. You know, and I felt better when I left there.
Yeah.
And I remember being that guy. I remember being that man. You know,
that mess of a person.
I remember being that mess of person, and I remember being that man that like, you know, finally got to that point after years of not sharing, after years of not saying anything, and I finally just got vulnerable. I remember being at a much better place spiritually, everything, emotionally. It's the key.
Yeah.
I know it. Do I always do it? Oh.
Right. The more honest, open, and vulnerable we are, no question, the more powerful and strong we are.
Sure.
And people equate vulnerability sometimes with weakness, but it's the opposite. It's strength. Being vulnerable means, you know, if the boss isn't treating you right, you can tell the boss, like, okay, here's why this isn't working for me when we do it this way. And what works better with me is if we do it this way.
Right.
Just so you know, like that kind of a talk doesn't occur when you're not being vulnerable. You have to like open up to be able to have those kinds of talks that are going to make both lives better in that situation, perhaps.
It's 100% a strength for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's 100% a necessity for me to live successfully in my life. I need to do that. And I know that deep down inside me that I need to do that. I need to just kind of strip down and be honest with people. And like someone told me the other day, he's like, a while back, he's like, it's not just about getting honest, like, oh, you're not lying to your wife. You need to it's about being honest with yourself. Someone told me that one time. It's like, sure, you didn't lie, you're not manipulating, and you're telling her the truth, but are you being real honest with yourself? Like, where are you right now? Where are you?
That's important.
It's like,
I think that's big.
I mean, I gotta go to work, I got this, and this is happening, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, but honestly, where are you? It's like, I'm scared. I feel like I'm reverting back, and I don't want to. I need to free myself. And that's what it really comes down to, just being honest. And it's tough.
It's tough to be honest with oneself sometimes.
Just stuff I told myself, man. I believed some of the lies that I told after a certain point. I believed it. I really believed
it wasn't your fault 100%.
Oh, it wasn't my fault, and this time it's gonna be different, and I'm gonna, this is different, and then it's her fault, and it's this fault, and it's this guy's fault. Like, I'm the guy that, like, legit, like, when I got in a got in 2 bad car accidents back to back under the influence. And the second one, I should have went over that embankment. I was going really, really fast, and I was drunk, and I was highly intoxicated. I was driving on a freeway, and I got off, and I walked away from that wreck with broken finger, bruises. You know, the car was $20,000 in damage, wrapped around this intersection, and there was nobody in sight. It was late at night. I probably would have killed somebody. And I remember being scared. I was in jail. I went to the hospital that night. I got out of there. The girl left. She said, I can't do this with you anymore. She was packing her stuff the next day, and I remember sitting in that front room drinking, you know. And my thought in my head, you know, most people are like, oh, I'm never doing that again. I'm not going to drink, and I'm not going to do that. My thought was like, I should have took the other exit. It's like getting in a wreck. It's like, well, why did I go down 4th Street? It's like, what are you?
That was the problem.
Yeah, that level of insanity.
If you hadn't gone down 4th Street.
Yeah, I should have took the next exit. No, you shouldn't have been driving.
Yeah.
You realize what's happening in your life.
Right, and you believe that?
At that moment, I convinced myself, and
like it would have all been better.
Yeah, and like I thought it'd be different the next time, and I went out and tried it again. It's insane.
Another bad accident.
No, that was the last bad accident I got
into,
and that was really, really bad. I do remember like going with my sister a couple days later because I had to get my belongings out of it. It was a big truck, and like get my belongings out of the vehicle, and my sister drove me. I walk around the yard, and like I see the truck. Don't even recognize it. It is mangled. And my sister, like, she puts her hands over her face, and she sees the vehicle, and she looks at me, and she just starts crying, like, bawling. You know, and the tow guy's looking at me, and you know, I was just like numb. Just like, her reaction to it was stronger than mine, and that's kind of like how I live my life. It's just I just let stuff roll off me. You know, and seeing her reaction like really messed me up. I was like, holy crap.
Because it kind of tweaked your reality.
Yeah,
thinking about the next exit anyway.
I ended up going to rehab like after that, and that was another adventure. And you know, it was good and motivating for a while out of fear, and then I kind of lost touch and fell back off again. But yeah, it was.
She kind of tilted the whole axis of your truth, right? When she saw it, then you said, "Oh."
Yeah, her reaction. My reaction was like, "Dang, my truck's damaged." Yeah. Her reaction was like, "You should be dead," kind of reaction, and that's the normal reaction.
There's one you should have had on your own, but you didn't until she did.
Well, if you would have looked at the vehicle, I think anybody would have cried. You know, and I think I blew 3.5, 4.5 times the legal limit, like a 0.36, which is really, really.
Wow.
You know, and I walked away without anybody getting hurt. You know,
just by sheer luck, right?
Luck, God. I mean, you know, my mom always claimed that there was always something looking after me. There's too many things that have happened in my life where I just can't deny the fact that that's true. You know, there was too many things I walked away from and was given another chance. A lot of people don't get that second, third, fourth, 8th, 10th chance. I shouldn't have a business right now. I shouldn't be married. You know, she should have left. Christina should have left. You know, but it didn't happen. I was given another chance. You know, and that's love too, to a certain extent. People genuinely care about me and want to see me succeed, and they've also seen me at my best, and then she's seen me at my absolute worst. You know. She's got photos of me like on the couch, passed out, and I don't even want to see it.
What's your current wife?
Yeah, my wife. Yeah.
It's the same difference.
I got married when I was young, man, 22, 23, and I didn't get married. I kind of did it for her. It didn't last. That was when the car accident happened. It didn't last 9 months. We were separated. You know, we were high school sweethearts. We separated a little bit after high school. We got back together. You know, again, I didn't know what love was then, and that was when my drinking was fun and this, and then it took off. But yeah, this is, you know, and then I met her, Christina, 2018. So at that point, I was over 2 years sober, and I was in a really, really good place. It didn't have a lot of stuff. You know, buddy had a townhouse, you know, some something small, but I was happy, man. I was genuinely really happy for the first time in a long time, and I had not felt that kind of happiness. When I met her, I was like, dude, I hit the jackpot. I genuinely felt love, happiness, excitement. Everything was going in the right direction in my life, and it wasn't like external stuff or money. And I was working for this contractor, and I was making okay. I mean, enough to get by. I drove this old pickup truck. It was this old Ford that my dad helped me get. It was his, and had a ton of miles on it. It was always a problem, and it was just. We lived in this apartment. Finally got our, like there's like 3 of us. Her friend was living with us, and we were living on the side of Costa Mesa. But I was living life, man. I was good. I was like pretty content inside.
And that's more important, obviously, than the material stuff. No question.
100%, dude. I never cared much about that. I just wanted to be free.
I had a lot of thoughts while you were talking. I had the car accident like you.
Yeah.
After other car accidents like you. And I had the one where there's no question that I had someone looking out for me.
Oh.
I even think it was my grandma, because when she passed, she left me. This is a weird way to think it's my grandma, but I think it was. She left me a little bit of money. It was enough to buy a car that I wanted.
Yeah.
And of course, I lived in Lake Tahoe where there's snow and ice.
I love Lake Tahoe.
I love it too. But a rear-wheel drive car with like 435 horsepower is like not the right car for there.
No.
So I went and bought it, and I was commuting to the Bay Area for my college, and going back up late at night, and I went up, and I had been drinking, and it was late, I don't know, 2 a.m. by the time I got to Tahoe, and at the very top, water, rain, all the way from the Bay Area, but I live in Tahoe, so I should know rain equals snow up there, but for some reason that didn't come to mind. I just kept driving just like it was the rain, right as I got to the top of the summit, and the Mustang went out of control, hit one side. I swerved to make it hit the butt side of the car first, so it wouldn't be a head-on.
Right.
And I think it worked, but then the second it hit, it sent it up in the air, did a double, like a flip, and then roll when it landed, and then skidded along on the roof, and I could feel the asphalt through the aluminum. It didn't scrape me, but I could feel it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is where you're done. This is your last thing you see. And then I get up and walk out of the car, and I was just like, fine.
Yeah.
And the passersby who drove up, they're like, do you know where the person is? I'm like, that's me. They're like, you got out of that car? Like, they thought for sure the person was dead. And then the cops thought the same thing. They're like, you got out of this car? I'm like, yeah. It was bizarre. Completely wrecked it. And I definitely feel like my grandma was up there going, shouldn't have bought the Mustang, but I want him out of trouble and keep him alive a little longer. And I don't know, that brings with it a responsibility to live up to, We're given this chance, and I feel that the chance I've been given is like yours. It shouldn't happen. I shouldn't be here. I've done plenty of things to not be here.
Yeah, and then when so many others don't always get that opportunity, for whatever reason, you and I are here today. And like someone said the other day, it was like living on borrowed time. I lived every day like I didn't care. Like I was gonna live to 1,000 years old.
Right.
Maybe I didn't care.
Yeah.
But I never appreciated my day. I never truly really appreciated other people that were there in my life, and I showed that through my actions. And I lived life like nothing was gonna happen. Like I was untouchable. Especially in my 20s. Some of the stuff I did, I was like, gee, I look back, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I was the same way. It's all similar stories, not exactly the same. Yours is unique, but I did get to that point where I didn't want to be alive for the next day, but I wasn't going to kill myself on purpose.
Sure.
So I just drank, like, maybe I won't be alive tomorrow. Yeah. And that was my way of basically being suicidal purposefully, because I knew the way I was drinking was death oriented.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I was dying 3 or 4 times in hospitals, ICUs, and so to go from that to now, where I count my blessings every day, and that, like this right now is a blessing that we're being here together talking about this. This change has been very profound for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, and that's the shift, right? That's the difference between now and the past. That's where that whole gratitude thing comes in. And when you hear those stories, you share those experiences, you're like, oh yeah, it was really bad, and I shouldn't be here today, but I'm here for some reason. And maybe my purpose is to be useful, is to love, is to care, is to, be that man that I'm supposed to be. And I think a lot of people probably saw that in us, and they witnessed it over the years, and they knew the potential, and they were just hanging around hoping something's got to happen. I think that's something, it takes things like that to happen for a person, at least for me, to wake up and realize that enough is enough. I don't want to live my life like this anymore. And then once you get a taste of and when I say freedom, I heard a guy share when I was early in sobriety. There was the first guy that came up, and he shared about, he was the 15-minute guy. He shared about, I got this car that, or you can get it too if you do this. It's great. I didn't care about any of that. I'm in real pain right now. And the next guy shared about being free from that obsession. And it made me think, because he was like, every day I woke up, and if I wasn't drinking or using, I was thinking about it, and that was me at the end. It consumed every single part of my life. So even though there was times when I got sober out of fear, or for whatever reason, her or whatever, I was constantly consumed with the thought of it. I was not free from it. I was a prisoner to it. It was just a matter of time before I picked up that drink again. All it took was one little incident to happen, and I was off and running again. And what I was told is, if I was willing to get vulnerable, willing to get honest, and willing to do a lot of work on myself, that I too can have that freedom, the obsession of the mind, and be able to live a life and be able to be useful and go anywhere a free man can go. And that to me was the biggest attraction, because I had gotten sober before. I had stopped drinking.
Right.
I didn't feel any better.
That's not the amazing change.
No,
right?
I didn't feel any better. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to go back. If this is what life has to offer, I'm going to go back. It's like they say, the same man will drink again, and that was true for me. And I'm like a poster board example of that. Without change, without work, without real deep work that I don't want to do. I'd rather watch football. I'd rather do anything than that. But I know the results of doing it. And I don't struggle today with the thought of wanting to drink so much as a lot of fear and ego and pride and life, but I know, because I've been there before. When I had that relapse in 2019, I was 3.5 years sober, and for the last 6 months I had stopped doing everything that worked. I stopped helping people, I stopped calling people, I stopped being vulnerable, I stopped doing all this stuff. I lost that connection, and I was sitting there going maybe I can do this again. And I remember it was my birthday. We went out on the Duffy Bow. We were going to a concert, and I had that beer, picked up that drink, and I drank all that day. Next day I was supposed to go to work, and then I drank some more then, and then and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get this under control. And 2 days later, my thankfully we share a location on our phone. I was in this parking lot of this shopping center that I had never even been to in Tustin or Irvine. I don't know, over here somewhere. I can't remember where it's at. I drove by the other day and it tripped me out because I had not been there. And I was in this parking lot in my truck, music playing. I don't remember her showing up, and I had bottles scattered in my truck, open container, daylight, and nobody called the cops, nothing, and I'm passed out in my truck. And I don't know how I got to the shopping center. I'd never been to the shopping center, and I drove there intoxicated again. And mind you, 2010, that was when that car accident was. There I was again, heavily intoxicated after doing so well 3 days later after picking up that one drink.
Mm-hmm.
And she found me and took me home. And then I did it a few more times. I remember one time someone was looking for me, or she was trying to track me down, and that's what she was doing. She didn't know what to do. She had never seen that Jared before.
Mm-hmm.
She knew the sober Jared, the good man she met,
Mm-hmm.
and then she saw this other one. It's like this whole nother person. She had no clue of what to do or what the right thing was to do. And she's not an alcoholic. And the story is, I was in my truck and I was at a green light. I was passed out in the intersection broadly. Cop had drove by and not arrested, didn't harm anybody, didn't hit anybody. I don't know how I made it there. And that's where I was. I was right back to where I left off.
Cop drove by and didn't arrest you, you mean?
Apparently there was like someone that drove by. She must have just got there in time, but this is like a busy intersection in Fullerton. Like it's broad daylight. I'm just like passed out, like up towards the intersection or to the right. I don't know if it's like on the side. I don't know. And she had to get me out of there, move my truck, put me in her car, and then I wound up in detox. And all I remember was like going to detox, waking up there. You know, and like, what happened?
Complete blackout, right? On the memory of it. Yeah.
But I know this about myself, and when I'm in that mode of doing that, I can't pull myself out once I start.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that time and time again, and that's the way I train. And it's very scary. It's to the point where I get shakes the next day. It's to the point of streaker on the clock, and I don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to get arrested again? Am I going to go to jail again? Am I going to... And at that point, like, I care about all the people and all the things, like I just told you about. I love this, I love my family and all that, but when I'm in that mode, all of that goes out the window.
All bets are off.
All bets are off. And you'll have to come chase me down and physically take it from me for me to stop. And that's where I get to. And you'll see me the day before helping people, doing things, and being this, trying to be a caring husband, and after that, like I jeopardized everything in my life because I need one more, I need another, I cannot stop, and that's where it takes me,
It's interesting that you talk about the work, and I think it's continual growth with the work. Like, I find myself at times a little more on the edge, than other times, and I find it's because I'm doing less. It's very simple.
Yeah.
I'm barely going to my meetings. I'm not helping anyone purposefully.
Yeah.
Maybe other than family, and that's easy. It's natural. But like, am I going by and offering myself to people? No. And during the day, I'm kind to people, but that's easy. I can be polite to people, but it's being in the present while doing everything, and actually going out with the purpose of helping others that keeps me on track. And I find, like, for example, this week, I'm trying to do some help for a guy, and I was triggered pretty quickly, and I was like, wow. Like, if something he's doing triggers something in me that wants to do it, that's a horrendous sign, and I better start getting to work more, because I felt that just this week, and I've been trying to ratchet up how much work I'm doing, but clearly I need more, much more, because it can go like that. It can get to where you think you're comfortable and you start to drop off a little, and there's no comfort drop off in this game. It's continual growth. That's the purpose. It's permanent in this thing, I think.
Yeah, and I 100% relate to that. I've seen it with everybody. Everybody's story is a little different. And the moment you let off the gas pedal and stop doing the work, it could be a matter of time, but life gets good. You can have a really, really good life. You can go from me passing out at intersections on the street, waking up in hospitals and other institutions, to having a really happy life. So long as you continually work and grow. It's like, there's no finish line. And I know like there's this other like internal growth and stuff I need to work on. And I see that in my actions, like, when I'm at home, how am I with my wife? Like, how am I, what are my responses like? Because a lot of things I do can trigger her, right? And you know, am I reacting to every situation because she's pointing out something to me that's probably true, probably accurate, and she wants to have an open, honest, vulnerable conversation with me, where I'm at now in my sobriety, I'm still working at that. You know, when I had that relapse in 2019, and it continued on for like 8, 10 more different things, and to finally getting to where I'm back and hitting that bottom again, like it drained me, not just because of the time, but where I was. It like I felt blocked off from every connection, spiritually, emotionally. Like I was able to, you know, get sober, but that emotional connection and where I was at that point is where I've been kind of get back to. And so I started getting into therapy some time ago with a gentleman, and I see him every 2 weeks. I wish I could do it once a week. It's expensive. I wish I could do it more, you know, it's not, but we do it every 2 weeks. And I'm trying to get open and honest with him and be vulnerable, because I need to carry this stuff in my every day.
Right.
I have struggles. I'm having struggles in my relationship. And you can be sober, and that's the thing. Like, I used to think like just being sober was enough, and I realized that that's just a start.
That's like one out of 100 things.
I got
100 things got to change.
Work on.
Yeah.
And because of my actions, I've broken a lot of trust with a lot of people that love me. Of course, they've seen the man I can be, but they question my every move and my step, and I accept that. I accept that I put myself in this position. You know, I lied, I hurt, I did a lot of damage to her and to people I love, and it's my responsibility that's the whole thing. It's my responsibility to get better. You know, it's my responsibility to put in the work. Nobody else's. Like I can't. It's not for her. It's everything that I can control, and that's me. And the good thing is like having a taste of that and being at the point, you know, like what it feels like, and you want to work hard to get back there.
Right.
If you've never experienced it, it may be a little challenging. You're like, well, this is all there is. I'm just gonna go back to what I was doing. Like, oh no, wait, it gets better. Give it time, but it takes a lot of work. So I'm in that work process.
Yeah, I think a lot of what gets better is up here. You know, it's our perception flips, and so we can have like a simple life with a job that doesn't have a ton of money, and we can be happy, and then we can meet someone, and we can fall in love, and that is having it all. Whereas, you know, some people picture, where's my 911, you know, in that picture.
Yeah.
Where is it parked? I don't see it.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, but that stuff can happen, and that's fine, but it can't. It's not the thing we're searching for. What we're searching for is that inner peace.
Yeah.
And we find it with this concepts we've been talking about today. I think we find it with the vulnerability, being loving, being open, all that stuff.
But I think for me, it's like change was absolutely necessary. Who I was then, that needed to change, right? No matter how sober I get or how much I do this, I had to change. You know, and I wanted to because I didn't want to be that scared little boy. You know, living his whole life based around fear. And I found there was a solution as long as I was willing to do the work. Be honest with people, you know. They said it's going to be an ongoing thing, you know, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to go back to that.
You feel like you're on track to getting back to the way you want to be?
Yeah.
On the right track with this extra help and stuff?
100%. I think I'm on the right track. Do I make mistakes every single day? And I have to make amends for them. I have a ton of work to do with me. I have a ton of work to do in my relationship because I demolished all that trust and all that good stuff I told you about by my actions. So I've damaged another person, I've hurt another person, and these people love me. Her family, my family, my wife, they want the best for me. They're still really hurt, you know, and some of them are still kind of waiting for that ball to drop. because they've watched it with me over the last couple
The
of years.
shoe always will drop kind of feeling.
Yeah, like we'll see how long this lasts for.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't blame them. I would be thinking that too. I often, which I never did, was like I try to put myself in their shoes. Like, you know, why is my wife responding the way she is? Why is she acting this way? Why is she questioning? It's like, oh yeah, 'cause I was a liar, I was a cheat, I was a thief, I was all these things, you know, and my addiction. People got to live through that with me, and I couldn't imagine. I'd never been in a relationship where that other person was an addict, you know. I did for a little bit. We were both kind of in our thing, but I'd never really been on the other side of it. And like you see the damage, what it does to families and stuff, but I've never had to firsthand experience it. Like someone lying to me, running off drinking, breaking into the house, picking them up in the intersection. Like, I mean, I'd done that for sober guys, but these weren't people that I had a emotional relationship
Not your
with.
child.
Not your child, not my spouse. So I could only imagine what that must feel like. It would kind of feel like if you found out that someone was having an affair and you're like trying to work on the relationship. They were like, a therapist had told her was like cheating on you with alcohol. I had never cheated on my wife, never any of that. I was still 100% faithful, but when it came to alcohol, I was very selfish, and that was my thing. You know, I didn't care about anything else. So when someone goes through something like that, they're traumatized, they're triggered, and
It's brutal.
It's brutal, and it's brutal what we do to people.
Yeah.
So it's my responsibility. You know, I have alcoholism. I cannot drink or use any mind-altering substance successfully. I accept that today, but it's my job at this point moving forward to treat it, right?
Right.
And I think it's my responsibility to be useful along the way, even though no matter what's going on in my life, to be useful and helpful to someone else. Because with that, from what I've been told and what I've experienced myself, there will be growth in me too.
Yeah.
And I think the difference today is that, you know, I want to be a better man. Like in the past, I thought, I'm a good dude, I'm this, I'm that, look at me, look what I can do, look how much I can provide, look what I can do when I go do the hard work and I focus in, I'm a hard-working man, I'm the best worker here. That's all nonsense.
Yeah.
It's complete nonsense. It's ego. It's complete nonsense. It's like, what really matters?
That's how I was too.
What really matters? Oh, you provide? Good for you. Are you there emotionally? Well, I mean, you know, well, no. Like, I don't know. Like that's what's important. So, I don't know.
Your talk is so good. It's brought up so many things I can relate to, like the hurting of others, like how I have to deal with it on the flip side. So I can imagine what it was like for them now, and painfully imagine, because like it's painful to watch like my older daughter and her disease is, you know, completely lost to it, and who knows what's going to happen. I'll just keep praying, but it's a feeling of like, kind of think they're not going to make it, and as feeling that way about a kid is hard. It's like if your kid gets cancer, what do you imagine almost worse than your kid dying of cancer? That's about like, it's a tough life. That's tough. Well, that's kind of what it's like watching us in our disease as a parent, because you know there's a chance. You know, with the things they're doing, there's deadly options involved, and so you know there's like a Russian roulette they're playing, and you know it's your kid, and you know you love them, you do anything for them, but anything that you can do is not helpful. They need to get that. And
Right.
so I see it on the flip side now more poignantly than I used to. You know, because I never thought I really did much to my family, because I lived in Tahoe and they were farther away, and I was literally basically sober around them for like 20 years when I was a complete alcoholic. But at home, you know, like when I was around them, I would just drink if they were drinking wine at dinner, I would have a glass, but I would not let myself. I never did that stuff in front of them ever. So none of them even knew for the longest period of time until my worst crash happened. happened, and then they all knew, and then they knew my history, and they were all just like, oh my God, this is you? Like, how could this be you? Like, yeah, it's me. Yeah, welcome to my shit show.
Yeah.
And so,
but I think she can look back and when that shift finally happens, or she goes through what we had gone through, and you know, she can remember that you were there, you know, for her. You know, and it took me a while to realize that even though people had to distance themselves so they wouldn't enable me, and I was upset at the time about that, is that when I finally got sober, hopefully when she experiences that, and it took time, you know, and then realized that's what real love is, because the intention is to help, you know, and but you know that you can do damage if you try too much. So it's like that. I don't know, you know, what that's like, because where do you draw the line? Trying to save somebody, let them fall, and what a decision for us to put somebody in.
mm-hmm.
What an awful decision. I mean, selfish and self-centered to the core. It's like, how do you make a parent or a wife or a spouse or a father make that decision? Put them in that position to like, I just let you go, and then if something happens, then I have to live with that responsibility that I could have done more. I think there's like, you know, I know men, you know, and I was one of them, that they get to a point, and like that's why I think there's such a high suicide rate amongst men. It's extremely higher than women, and I've been hearing a lot about it lately. And people in their addiction, not in their addiction, just get to a point, and everybody goes like, I didn't know, I didn't see the signs, or I didn't do this, or wish I would have done more. And it's like, it's kind of like what it is, dying from this disease, you know, whether it's a fentanyl overdose, alcohol-induced coma, death, or whatever. It's like, it's kind of the same. It's very similar in that sense. I couldn't imagine like what you're going through, or what we put our families through in that thing, because it seems like I just thought I was harming myself, and I was just drinking, but I was playing Russian roulette at the time, because the way I drank at the end, it wasn't the way I drank at the beginning, but the way I drank at the end, and what my wife has witnessed, my family has witnessed, was Russian roulette. It was suicidal.
Yep.
You know, and I believe that if I continued to drink like that, I don't think I would have made it here. You know, if it wasn't for her, if it wasn't for people that loved me and that pushed me away or did what they had to do, and it got me to a point of just being broken down enough to make that change. You know, I don't think I'd be where I am today. You know, I don't think I would have lasted a year. I really don't. Not the way I drank. Maybe a couple of years, and it would have been miserable.
Yeah,
Maybe.
miserable last couple of years, maybe.
Yeah.
And the same as you, I don't think, they say death or institutions. I'm pretty convinced which way I would be going is the death side, not the institutions.
Yeah, I would have probably avoided
Because,
that.
yeah, I get to the death part quick. I cut to that pretty quickly. And last time it took 17 days drinking. And I drank myself basically to death in that short amount of time. And this whole talk has been, for me, a blessing and beautiful.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And thanks for sharing all this with me. This is good stuff. And I just want to thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, man.
it's special.
Yeah,
Thanks for
awesome, bro. Thank you. I can do another 3 hours of this.
I could too.
Yeah.
We could do another one later. If you're up for it.
Yeah, we're doing fake part 2.
I hope it was recording. Double check when you press that. Was it recording?
You want me to send it? I don't know how I'm going to send it to you.
Okay, mine was recording. Yours was recording, right? I'm pretty sure, but.